So this evening, I'm going to talk a little bit about pricing mindset, what to do and what not to do when you're pricing. Some of you might know what I'm going to say anyway, because I often say it in the group. Oh, a lovely heart. Thank you, whoever gave me a heart. That's very nice. So yes, we'll talk a bit about mindset. Then I'll talk sort of the basics of pricing, what kind of things you have to think about and what kind of things you have to look for. And then I'm going to go through some examples. So I've got my handy whiteboard pen and I've got my whiteboard. Hi, Suzanne. Hello. I will talk you through an example which hopefully will help you to see how accurate you need to be when you're pricing. Okay, so first of all, let's have a look. And I've got my blog written here so I can crib off it. I say this every week, don't I? Because my memory is not what it was. I can remember operas, but I can't remember. I used to, when I was teaching, I used to have little notes when I was teaching, so I wouldn't forget what I was saying. But anyway, so we're going to have a look at 5 aspects of sort of mindset, the sort of the mindset behind pricing, because it's really important to make sure that you have the right attitude, for want of a better word. You have the right mindset and attitude for pricing if you're going to build your business, because that's, at the end of the day, that's what we're here for, isn't it? We're CEOs of our business and we want our business to make a profit and do well. So in order for that to happen, there are certain things we must do and must not do. So number 1, and this is all on the blog, by the way, I'll put the link to the blog either tonight or tomorrow morning. Number 1, you've got to cost accurately according to how much it actually it costs you to make that actual product. Okay, so you've got to add everything up. Just plucking a figure out the air or saying, oh, they charge £5, so I'll charge a £5 is going to be no good to you. The example that I'm giving in a minute hopefully will demonstrate that. But you've got to know your figures. You've got to know how much each product is making, because you've got to know whether it's worth selling or not, whether it's worth the effort of you doing it. And so the example I'm going to give you in a minute will hopefully demonstrate that. So that's number 1, cost accurately. Number 2, don't compare your prices to others. Okay. Their costs are not the same as yours. Their products are not the same as yours. Their ideal customer, I'm always talking about ideal customer, but it's really, really important. The ideal customer comes into everything that you do. Knowing that the ideal person that you're selling to is really important. I did a blog and I did a live on ideal customer. So look, that I won't talk about that too much for now. But believe me, it makes a real difference to know who you're aiming at. Okay. So don't compare your prices to others, because person down the road or person local or whoever it is might be aiming at a completely different customer to you. You've got to do your own figures. You've got to have your own lists. Okay. Number 3, you've got to attach the appropriate value and worth to your skills and your time, and then stick to your guns. If you've added everything up and it looks really expensive, then it's going to be expensive. Okay. Don't sort of knock it all off and only give yourself 50p's worth of, an hour, just because you don't think people will pay that. What you need to do is put that out at the price where it's going to make your business a profit. And if no one buys it, then it might be that you bring it off, for sale, and look at what you can offer that will make you a profit. Okay, there's absolutely no point in creating a product that loads of people want to buy, but only at a certain rate that makes you the minimal profit. There's no point. Okay, you're not doing your business any good doing that. Right. What was that? That was number 3. Number 4, we're back to ideal customer. You've got to realize that every business will attract different customers. Okay. For some customers, you'll be too expensive, but for some, you'll be too cheap. Okay. That sounds really odd, but it's true. For example, I do wedding cakes. And I know that a lot of couples, brides, usually brides that ask, if they come to me for a price, if, for example, they'd got 3 or 4 quotes for a similar type of cake, and 3 of the businesses quoted, let's say, pluck a figure out there, 500, 550, 575. And the 4th one said, oh, I'll do that for 200 for you. I think, that bride is going to go, oh, hang on, they can do that for 200, really? When all the others are about 500. I'm not sure I trust that cost. That looks too cheap to me. I think I'm going to come a cropper with that. So you've got to charge what you're worth. I mean, that £200 cake is not going to make a profit at all if it's the same as what others are charging, 550 for. I know I just said you shouldn't compare, but the point I'm making is that you can be too cheap for people, right? If people want a certain standard and a certain level of product, then they will pay for it. They will pay good money for it, as they say. And I always come back, I'm always mentioning this, the supermarket analogy, where you've got Lidl, where you've got Waitrose, where you've got Fortnum & Mason in London. Each of those have different pricing. Each of those have different, very loyal customers that always come back to them. Okay, so we have to think in terms of who our ideal customer is and who we are serving and what kind of product we produce for that particular person. And number five, I see this a lot in the group. And there's a bit of tough love from Annie. Sometimes I do tough love. There are 2 questions that are often asked in the group. One is, what would you charge? And the other is, what would you pay? Now, actually, those 2 questions are very different, totally different questions. Okay. You're asking someone what they would charge as a business. Okay. You're asking them what their costs are and what value they put on their product to their ideal client. What they would pay is completely different question. What I would pay as a customer for something might be very different to what I would charge as a business. What I pay as a customer for things depends on, what the product is, how much I want it, whether it's specific to what I actually need. I mean, you might find this when, for those of you that do birthday cakes and things, for example, and you're looking for a topper, the customer has asked you for perhaps they've drawn it. They want a topper that looks like this. It's got this bit on here, that bit on there, and it's got whatever. And you're trying to get as close to that particular topper as you can. And you look online, you're on Etsy, on wherever, you look for toppers. And there are some that are sort of a little bit similar, let's say for, I don't know, tenner. But that you see one that is exactly what that customer has asked for. And if you buy that topper, it will be exactly what they've asked for, but it's £15, it's more expensive. Surely you're going to go for that topper that is exactly what you're after, rather than go for a topper that's not quite, but it's a bit cheaper. So the point I'm making is that people will pay a little bit more for if something is exactly what they want. Okay. So bear that in mind when you're making your cakes. If it's exactly what they want, then they will pay more for it. Okay. So remember, what someone charges and what someone will pay, 2 completely different questions. Okay, so that's the sort of the mindset and attitude of pricing. You've got to have all those things in place. You can't just pluck figures out of the air, and I'll show you why in a minute. But when you're actually pricing, there are 2 main areas. Okay, 2 main things you've got to think about. The first one is the actual specifics to that product, what the ingredients are, how much the box cost, how much the board cost, how much the ribbon costs, for example. All those, excuse me, I'm drinking Coke. I shouldn't really, should I? It's all bubbling up. All those costs are fairly easy to work out specifically for that product. So, for example, if you're making a birthday cake and you've used, I don't know, off the top of my head, 300 grams of flour. If the kilogram bag of flour costs, I don't know, £1, then you've used 30p. I think that maths is right. So you can just sort of divide and multiply and whatever to get exactly how much of that product has gone into that, how much of that ingredient has gone into that product. Okay, those are the easier bits. The trickier ones, the second set, are the overheads. Okay, and it was when I was writing this earlier that I thought, actually, this needs a session in itself because it's quite complicated. What you've got to then do is look at all the other costs for your business that aren't specific to one product. So you're talking about your energy use. I know that you turn the oven on to bake, but that's only a fraction. You know, you're in your kitchen with the lights on, you've perhaps got heating on, you're heating hot water. All those kind of things are more general. So you've got that, you've got your insurance, you've got broadband, you've got, I mean, there's a whole list. If you haven't seen it already, I do a free checklist that lists, because I can't remember them off the top of my head, that lists all the things you need to consider. If you go to my blog, there's a link in there and I'll send it to you. And it's quite handy just to have that list, go, oh, yes, I've included that. Oh, yes, I've included that. And actually, once you've seen that list and you start referring to it, other things will, oh, yes, I've forgotten this. I have to pay for this as well. So you've got to list everything. Okay. And what I'll do in a couple of weeks is I'll show you how I work out my overheads so that I know when I'm pricing up a product, you know, a wedding cake, I cover those overheads. Okay. So look out for that in a couple of weeks. Okay. So I would have done it tonight, but it will take too long. It needs a session on its own, that one. So you've worked out all your ingredients, you've worked out your overheads. What I do is, as a wedding cake baker, and lots of you can do this as well for birthday cakes, for, you know, if you're market trading and you're doing cupcakes or brownies or whatever, you can work out a basic price. Okay, I use an Excel spreadsheet, which means that if my prices of ingredients change, I can just change the box with that ingredient price in, and then everything else changes. Okay. So have a basic set of prices. So when I price up a wedding cake, I don't start with, right, how much flour am I going to use? How much? I know all that already. All I need to do is go, well, they want a 6-inch, an 8-inch, and a 10-inch. And I look at what those charges are and I put that on the list. Okay, so having basic costs for your basic products, which you can then add the extras to, saves an awful lot of time. But you've got to review those regularly for price increases, sometimes decreases, but usually increases at the moment. Okay, so you've got to keep those current because you've got to make a profit. This is what we're here for. Right, here we go. It's demo time. Are you ready for this? That's rather smelly. Okay, here we go with an example of why you need to be costing your products accurately. Let's say, none of these prices and costs, by the way, are actually based in reality. They're just examples. Let's say that you go to market and you want to make brownies and cookies because you're fairly sure that those are what will sell. People that go to the market will buy brownies and cookies. Okay. And you've perhaps plucked out the air that, yeah, everyone else charges about £3. So I'm going to charge £3. Okay. For a brownie. There we go, £3 for a brownie, £3 for a cookie. Okay. Let's say, for brownies, let's say at the end of the day of the market, you sold 50 of them. Woohoo! Woohoo! So that means you made, or you had income of £150. That is right, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, that's good. That's good. Okay. Let's say for the cookies, you sold 20. Didn't sell as many, but 20 is still not bad. what would that be? I did write it down because my brain's addled. £60. Okay. Now on the face of it, it looks like brownies are your best seller, doesn't it? Yeah. You've sold more, you've made more money. But let's say that actually, if you work out your actual costs, you can see that, right? Sorry, something's coming in again now. No, it's not going to do it, is it? Oh, no, hang on. The whole thing's going to collapse in a minute. That's a bit better, isn't it? Let's say that you then went away and actually worked out the cost of making each product. Now, brownies, let's say you use quite a nice chocolate, nice Belgian chocolate for your brownies. So actually the cost of your brownie is going to be a lot more to make. And you add it up and you find out that actually your brownie costs you £2.80 per brownie to make because the ingredients are so much more. So actually you're only making 20p per brownie. Da, da, da. So actually the profit that you've made is only £10 from that. Let's say the cookies though, not so much Belgian chocolate in cookies, not so much, perhaps they're cheaper to make, they're less expensive to make. And actually a cookie only costs you £2.30 each. Okay, I'm not sure if these costs are accurate, by the way. I'm just plucking them out of the air for an example, but just bear with me on this one. So let's say that the profit for each cookie is 70p. So actually, with our sales, you made £14 from the cookies. So even though you sold less, you only sold 20 of them, you've actually made £4 more profit than you did with your brownies because your brownies cost more. If you had sold 50 cookies, so if you've sold 50 cookies, actually your profit would be £35. So your profit from 50 brownies is £10. Your profit from 50 cookies is £35. Which one are you going to focus on more after that? Do you see what I'm getting at here? Even though, you know, your profit, the cost to make doesn't look that different, but actually when you add it up, it makes a vast difference. It's the difference between £10 and £35 selling the same number of items. So you've got to know how much a product costs and how much you are making profit on each item so that you know whether it's worth making and selling them. Okay. I mean, if you slaved away and sold, you know, however many of whatever, but actually the figures said, well, you've only actually made, I don't know, £5, even though you've sold all of those, you're going to need to rethink. Yeah. So it's really important not just to say, oh, I'll charge £3 because they do, or they've charged £3 because everyone says that's, you know, that's about right. You've got to add it all up. You've got to know how much each one costs, so you know how much profit you're making. Here endeth the maths lesson. Let's move that out of the way, otherwise it's going to fall over. So hopefully you can see by that it's really important to know your numbers, to know what it's costing you. Because as I always say, at the end of the day, we are running a business. Someone said this in the group the other day, which I thought was brilliant. I can't remember who it was, so apologies if you're listening. But someone said, don't think of yourself as a cake maker with a business. Think of yourself as a business owner who makes cakes. think of it that way around. You are responsible for your business making money. Okay. You are responsible for making a profit. And if you don't know what your numbers are, you don't know whether you're making a profit or not. That's what it comes down to. Now, as I said before, I do have a checklist that you can get for free. All you need to do is give me your email address. You can unsubscribe from it if you like, but I send that to you. My system is all automated. So when you put your email address in, it sends it to you because it's all very clever. I do also have a pricing course, which includes my spreadsheet, my Excel spreadsheet that I've spent quite a few years working out. So that's the spreadsheet where you put in your cost of your butter, and then it will tell you, you know, how much you need to sell it for when you put in all your costs and things. And the training that goes with it, I go through a lot of mindset stuff, similar to what I've just said, but in a bit more detail. And then I go through how to use the spreadsheet as well. Okay, so there's that as well. And if you want that, again, look at the blog and it'll have the link on that for you. Okie dokie. And as always, if you've got any questions about pricing, then pop them in the group. You know, more than happy to help with that. And I know there's lots of bakers that are very good at pricing, so there's loads and loads of help in the group, because it's the trickiest thing, isn't it? Pricing is the trickiest thing when you set up a business. I was very similar when I started, because I'd not been in business. I mean, I'd been a teacher. You don't have to price things when you're a teacher. You know, you do maths and sums, but you don't have to price things. And so it's not just the numbers, it's the whole package of, you know, the mindset and things as well. And it is a tricky thing. So don't be afraid to ask questions. People often say, oh, I know this is a silly question, but there's really no such thing as a silly question. Particularly if you're new to something, you've got to have the confidence to ask and say, I'm not sure about this. I don't know this. Can someone help me? Okay. And the other thing about the group as well, because we're getting up to 8,000 people in there now, which is just fabulous. There's so much experience in there. Don't be intimidated by someone who's quite experienced. You know, you're, as they say, you're on chapter 1 of your book. They might be on chapter 20 of their business book, if you like. So don't be put off by seeing what other people are doing, thinking, oh, I'm not as good as them. Next week, I'll talk to you a bit about next week in a minute, but hopefully I'm going to talk a bit about imposter syndrome next week. You know, that feeling that, what am I doing here? I'm no good. Everyone else is brilliant. I'm just a fraud. So I'm going to be talking about that next week, hopefully. I say hopefully because I'm off to Guernsey again over the weekend. My other half lives in Guernsey and I'm off to see him on Sunday. I'm on the ferry. I'm going on the ferry. It's so exciting. So I will be in Guernsey next week. My plans at the moment are that I will still do the Wednesday evening at 7:30. But there are quite a few variables involved, you know, as in, will the Wi-Fi work, all that kind of stuff. So it may be that I have to postpone it, but I'm planning not to at the moment. So next week, hopefully, is to do with imposter syndrome. I think that's right. Hang on, let's just double check. Have I got that for next week? Yes. Mindset, imposter syndrome. The week after, I'm going to be talking about selling at markets and fairs, because I know lots of people do that and lots of people are new to that. If you're experienced at selling at markets and fairs, do join me for that, because you can help. You can add in tips and things, because it's been a few years since I've done those, although I did quite a few when I did them. And then on the 24th of August is when I'm going to do the session on calculating overheads, how you work those out and how you price those per product. So that will be then. I think you should enjoy. Tell me about it. Go. So, oh, yes. watch the sunset together, a glass of wine. Well, it'll be, and the last time I went was February, so it was a little, although actually the sun did shine quite a lot, which I was quite pleased about. It was a bit chilly. Guernsey is quite a chilly place, but hopefully this time it'll be a bit sunny and we can sit on the beach and things like that, so that'll be quite nice. Thank you very much, that's very sweet of you to say. So that's what's coming up in the Annie Bennett Wednesday Live world. If you get my emails, all this is on there. I think the email before last, I had a slightly different order, but the last, do you know, I can't remember. Next Sunday's email will have all those properly, because I do switch them about occasionally when I think there's need for them. But yeah, if you get my emails, I always put there what's coming up and what's going on with that. All right. There we go. So I hope you've enjoyed that. I hope you enjoyed the maths. It's been a while since I've taught a maths lesson. Quite fun. So have a lovely week. If you follow me on Instagram, hopefully you'll see on my stories my adventures to Guernsey over the weekend, and I will hopefully come to you from Guernsey next week. So have a lovely week. Have a lovely weekend, whatever it is you're doing, whatever you're baking. Have a good one. Enjoy it. And I will see you next week, my lovelies. All right. Toodaloo.